Forward Base Sawano at Xeno Island. Episode 8. No Way. Wasn't that fun? Inquired Toby through the reinforced crystalline glass of the brig. I thought it would be fun to try. Would not have expected that to actually work. Thanks to the clarity and detail of Yuki's and Thulner's reports, he had been perfectly equipped to deal with the situation from yesterday. You guys really attacked the wrong people. Toby could only imagine what it must have felt like going up against Yuki and Thulner at the same time, encountering a training-obsessed sword fanatic and a heroism-obsessed, self-sacrificing wall of a man. Where was it? Ken introduced himself, walking up behind Toby. And the other two? This one's Dio, replied Toby. Picked him up at the bridge. I had a feeling it was him when I saw the state of his cloak and the rip in the hood. Figured that he might still be carrying around some of that goo, so I tried the magnet. For the other guys, I have not gotten anything out of him. Lieutenant Commander Piak is looking at finding the other two at the moment. Just inside the brig, a few footfalls and talons tapped hastily by. We don't really have other choices, Adam, observed Admiral Nao. Your fleet is the only one this side of the vertical boundary layer that can manage a task like this. I'll write the order officially by tonight to speed things up. Otherwise, just... replied Adam. The situation was hopeless as far as he was concerned. Sten's request was unrealistic, both the deadline and the sheer volume involved. He couldn't move that much material in a few hours. Perhaps by the end of the day. Nao shot him a confused glare. Is this thing even working? Inquired Nao, slapping the edge of his comms device and twisting an earpiece. These darn translators. Even admirals had to tolerate unreliable gear on occasion. Sigh. Adam, what if we upgrade the current fleet instead of adding to it? He flapped his flippers, reaching a full 2 seconds of airtime. Kid and you haven't gotten any action in this story anyway. Maybe it's time to pull out trolls and tranquility. Do we need to synthesize more stimulant packs? Adam shook his head. Well then, manual labor coming right up, announced Nao. They made their way outside, ending up by the bay that bordered the underground entrance to Sawano Base. The 4 inlets across from each other contributed to the X in the island name. The other beaches were a rocky or inaccessible cliff, but here in the eastern end, it sloped gently downward to sea level. The island was vibrant green today, wind petting the tall grass, wispy cirrus racing the skies. Xeno Island was well hidden. For a forward base, it was miniature, and the low elevation reduced it to an inconspicuous, undesirable dot on the map. Their enemies had traveled that area on multiple occasions and suspected nothing, making it perfect for the type of work that went on there. All right, Adam, began Nao. With all of these, you get 12 hours. That should be enough to cut down on at least half of the transport. Adam was still wearing a sash, but it was subdued purple in comparison to the brilliant dress uniform. The seams were bulky and thick, designed to tolerate considerable strain rather than gleam in shining white hulls. Arrayed down the front were pockets with thick syringes inserted across, and inside those, a bright blue liquid. I'll make sure Angela knows you're heading there for dinner, finalized Nao. No way! Thulner leapt out of bed and scrambled to the window. Splash, splash. The roar of a small tidal wave rocked the island. Droplets poured onto the windows, pattering and tapping like hail. He smiled massively. What a wonderful sound. Yuki-san, you gotta see this! It's trolls! She turned her head inquisitively and had an entertained chuckle. What the hell? Yelled Annie abrasively, sloughing the water off her arms with a shake. She was drenched. So was the rest of the team. What's going on here? Water receded off the dock into the bay. The weather boys from Sagittarius A drunk on Lunarian vermiform or something? What is the... A massive black blur waddled in front of the dock entrance across the expanse of water, hushing the dock as they watched it tread steadily forth. As it passed, the ocean stilled, leaving the place drenched but otherwise untouched. "Oh, so he used it again," commented Sten casually, poring over clipboarded papers. The cylinder of goo rumbled as the place shook rhythmically every other second. There were no windows this far underground, where AZ had been set up, but the upheaval and falling beakers was a familiar phenomenon. "I suppose the ashes will be done sooner than expected," he realized. "Nishi, aye!" called Lieutenant Angela frantically from the kitchen counter. "We have to cook and serve every fish in storage by dinner. When we're low on ovens, use AZ's Bunsen burners, no matter what Sten says about it." She looked across the dining hall, half full already. Anticipating sigh. "We'll have to handle lunch and dinner for the normal customers, too. How does the Admiral expect us to do this? They're not going to get a minute off today." No one had ever been brave enough to ask for a caloric estimate. "Oh, I hope they can do this. They're too inexperienced." I'll tell Hulk," stuttered Dio, cowering in the corner of the brig. Toby stared incredulously, hand stuffed in a pocket. Another wave shook the base, and Dio whimpered. This was the part where Toby did his best to pretend that the tremors outside were a genuine threat. He had assumed the hardest part of this job would be to extract information from the suspect, not pretending that the resident penguin was the largest threat on base. "Oh, well, what do you have for me?" Back on top of the island, Nao gazed across the expanse of blue. Far in the distance, a massive black and white penguin stomped through the sea, heading back toward the mainland. Adam was the only captain in charge of an entire fleet, but the majority of the fleet's work came from Trolls, his personalized weapon. Trolls itself was actually a collection of precisely dosed injections of a stimulant drug called Into the Sky, found only on the moon where his species was native. Its effects were sizable. From the foot-tall juvenile at which he normally walked the halls of Sawano base, the drug had grown him a mile upward. Naturally, this meant that Adam himself was the primary asset of his fleet, the Foglum Kefik, with capacity equal to the rest of the entire fleet. By the end of the day, one pack of Into the Sky would let Adam deliver AZ all the material required to outfit the jewels. Phew. John wiped his brow with the back of a heavily gloved hand. Kneeling off the edge of the prow, he tugged on a thick electric coil attached around the whole of the ashes. With a satisfied nod, he peered over the deck and followed the coil all the way to the stern until it disappeared behind the gradual gray curve of the ship. "Jane, you're short. You hang on it. Let's see if it matches the load requirements." She dropped down off the deck and grabbed the cable with both hands. It barely dipped to sustain her weight. "Awesome!" she exclaimed. "I can't wait to test it out and see how she looks." "Still can't believe they put in the material order for all this just yesterday," replied John. "I know," pant. "Right?" huffed out Jane, doing her best to keep hold. "The sheer volume of what Adam brought in," continued John, "and the fact that we put it all together in a day. The senior chief is gonna love this. She has to. It's so secure you can—" "John!" called a familiar voice. Oh no. This wasn't good. Did he forget to turn off his torch? Leave his tools out and they jab someone in the eye again? What if Lieutenant Commander Mika called him in for liability charges? Or was it because he had Jane hang 100 feet off the docks without a safety net? Did he accidentally spill corrosive? Good job. The team wheeled about to see Senior Chief Annie nodding satisfactorily away below them on the docks. "I mean it," she said. "Jane can hang on it, it's stable. Good job. He could hear the blood pulsing through his ears. It felt like Senior Chief Annie said good job on average twice per year, at least to them. You was want to watch the launch, she continued. Just a test launch right now. She doesn't ship out until tomorrow. Come on, you earned it. John grinned. She was a kind person at heart when she didn't have to mother all the boys under her command. Captain Toby said he wanted to try out AZ's new toy. Anyway, if this goes as planned, we'll have our jewels back out at the boundary layer soon enough. I want to see him shine. John and the others clambered back down, joining Annie. As he stepped foot onto the dock, the large bay doors clanged open. There was Captain Toby, perfectly on schedule, and it looked like Captain Kin had joined him. Did he talk? Inquired Kin, gaze buried over a comm screen projecting personnel files. Oh, he talked all right, explained Toby, face beaming with anticipation and a sense of accomplishment. Remember when we finally got past the vertical boundary layer, and then the fleet admiral called that retreat all of a sudden? Kin nodded, switching pages. That boundary layer we have had our eyes on is some sort of aquaforming toxin they have been spilling into our oceans from their forward ports. The admirals called us back so we would not go down before we knew more about it. So for today's patrol, we're supposed... The rest of Toby's speech faded as they passed by. Something suspicious was going on. John had harbored suspicion since 5 captains at once had shown up at Sawano base last week, and now they were already preparing to head back into the storm. Why would the bigwigs send the whole fleet to the forward base all of a sudden? It was just last week when all of this had started, during an overenthusiastic game of cards. We're expendables, John, he remembered Smith saying. Just finish your beer and carry out your orders. Leaning his elbows back onto a barrel, he chuckled and shook his head. Gently swaying with the pulse of the tide, the sonars of Farron rose and fell just above him. At this rate, the jewels would be serviceable before their captains. It wasn't long before the lights burned on from the bridge, and the engine of the Ashes began to churn away. In the AZ briefing earlier that morning, Lieutenant Commander Sten had proudly displayed the addition of a new console for controlling the armor outfit. Along with the cable structures that were to maintain it, and the purification plant attached to the engine, it was likely to be the most updated unit of tech out on the ocean for another month. Today, Toby had the chance to be the first one to play with it. Steady with the speed, called out Toby. We are just heading out a few miles, not going out for adventure. A chain of voices echoed his commands. The Ashes pulled gently forward, wading out of dock. Let's see what this thing can do. Shields up, he commanded. The call resounded across the bridge personnel again. A hum kicked up. As the Ashes left the shelter of the underground bay, a wall of water began to rise up around the hull. Purple and gold electrical sparks flashed down the cables, holding the water in place. A crewman shouted from the deck below. Toby grinned as the Ashes prowled smoothly through the ocean highway. And we're away!